My name is Angie Garnsey, and I'm a recently retired state trooper. I'm currently the training coordinator for the All Clear Foundation Responder Strong Training Program. I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about resiliency. As responders, we can all agree that we know that resiliency is very important. But how do we build our resiliency? One of the aspects that we can develop is utilizing effective communication. So let's go ahead and get started by defining what exactly effective communication is. For us, effective communication simply means that all parties involved in the exchange have the opportunity to share, feel valued, heard, and in fact understood. Effective communication doesn't include just the words that come from our mouth, but our nonverbals as well. We can all agree that effective communication is the cornerstone of connection and relationship building. It is also one of the strongest predictors of resiliency. Now, within this conversation about effective communication, there are three different types of styles of communication that I would like to discuss with you, with the first one being passive. So let's go ahead and get started. So what exactly is passive communication? Passive communication is a style in which can feel very one-sided. It's oftentimes described as an interaction wherein the individual's priorities are placed on pleasing or fulfilling the needs, desires of the person receiving the message. And in doing so, they are doing so at their own expense, which can often lead to an individual feeling resentment or even taken advantage of. Okay, so now that we've introduced passive communication style, let's discuss what the exact opposite of. The exact opposite is going to be an aggressive style communication. This type of interaction is where a person expresses only their needs, wants, desires, and feelings. The other person will oftentimes feel ignored and even at times bullied in a way. This is often a one-sided conversation as well. The third and final style of communication that we're going to discuss today is assertiveness. As a responder, we know the importance of being assertive at any given time. It's not any different in terms of communication. The goal of communication should be to approach every interaction with an assertive approach. In an assertive conversation, it is mutually beneficial for all the parties that are involved. There is an opportunity for everyone to speak, be heard, and ultimately feel valued as a contributor to that exchange. Okay, so now that we've introduced the three different styles of communication, I want to kind of pull that all together by sharing with you the value of the 3 C's. The 3 C's in this particular situation are compromise, confidence, and clarity. When we're delivering a message, regardless of the situation, we want to make sure that we key in on the 3 C's. As responders, I think it's safe to say that many of us are familiar with numerous acronyms that are associated with our respective fields. This presentation isn't going to be any different. I'd like to introduce the acronym of the word IDEAL, I-D-E-A-L, to you. We're going to break down exactly what this acronym means and how it can help with building resiliency and our ability to effectively communicate. As promised, we're going to go ahead and break down this acronym known as IDEAL. The first letter is the letter I. So what exactly does the letter I have to do with effective communication? Well, in this case, we'd like to focus in on the role of identifying. Identifying the who, what, when, where, and why part of a conversation will ensure that we set the foundation to have effective communication. All right, so the second letter of our acronym is the letter D, and in this particular situation, the letter D is going to refer to the word describe. The goal of every communicator should be to describe in adequate detail what exactly they're trying to convey to the person receiving the message. The problem has to be viewed objectively in order to be most effective, and we can incorporate utilizing detail to illustrate what we're trying to accomplish. This opens up for the other persons involved in the conversation to engage. The third letter of our acronym is the letter E. In this particular situation, it represents our commitment to expressing our concerns and how we are feeling in a particular situation. It's also important too to pay attention to the receiving party, how they are also expressing themselves. It's important in terms of achieving effective communication. The fourth letter in our acronym is the letter A. The letter A stands for asking. This is really important in terms of being an effective communicator. It's an invitation for you to engage with the other party that's receiving your message. Ask them for their perspective, their contribution, and this too will lend itself to feeling as though you are both being effective communicators. The fifth and final letter of our acronym is the letter L. For our purposes, the letter L is going to stand for list. In other words, we want to end the conversation by listing out what we intended to achieve, or in other words, summarizing what our goals were. This is really important in terms of lending itself to effective communication. It gives an opportunity for everyone to ensure that we're all on the same page moving forward. We have spent a lot of our time discussing effective communication. One more aspect of effective communication is paying attention to how people receive our message. This is crucial in terms of being an effective communicator. There is yet another acronym that I'd like to refer to. This one is known as ARC, A-R-C. What exactly does ARC stand for? ARC stands for Active Constructive Responding Model. Sounds really complicated, of course, but not so much. It's basically identifying that there are 4 types of responses that a person can have when they are receiving a message: constructive versus destructive, and active versus passive. As we discussed, there's 4 potential responses that an individual can have when they are receiving our message. The best way to look at this is essentially think of it as a grid. So if a person is actively communicating and delivering a message, they're going to oftentimes show authentic, genuine interest. They're going to be engaged. If the person receiving that message is in a constructive mindset, then they too will also be interested in elaborating upon the topic at hand and engaging so that it's mutually beneficial for everyone. This can oftentimes be referred to as a joy multiplier. The second type of conversation response that we can anticipate is that if we are actively engaging with the person that is receiving our message and their response is destructive. So if we're actively engaging them and they are on the destructive side of things, then a lot of times what will happen is the conversation will sound as though the topic is being minimized or the audience is focusing on the negative. This is often called a thief of your joy in terms of conversation. The third type of response could be passive and constructive. So what does it mean to be a passive communicator? Well, in this particular situation, you can oftentimes be understating the topic or the subject that we're trying to address and feel as though the message being delivered, you're disengaged from it. When someone is receiving that message and they are on the constructive side of things, they're still trying to engage, but oftentimes will respond with just a singular word. This is known as conversation killer, and oftentimes is not mutually beneficial for anyone involved. The fourth and final conversation style that we'd like to touch on in terms of response from individuals is the conversation hijacker. This is when someone is passively delivering the message, again, meaning that they're understated or not necessarily engaged in delivering the message, and the person on the receiving end is being destructive in their response. They are simply minimizing or focusing on the negative, thus referred to as a conversation hijacker. All in all, we have to learn how to manage each of these responses in order to be effective communicators. In conclusion, we know that interpersonal communication can cause stress for us. We also know that being an effective communicator does require commitment, work, and a lot of effort from time to time. I hope that you learned a few things during this conversation today. The takeaways are always important. We get them from all different places and times in our careers. Take good care, stay safe.